Ladies and gents, welcome back to our City of Liverpool save. I am sefian.gaming, your host as usual. Our next match against Farnborough will not be in this episode. I just wanted to mention this. This is a special episode because my buddy Malcolm Clark has asked, why have we been so successful with our 4-4-2s? And how do I make transfers? What are the players that I look for? So I'm going to do an episode. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a fairly lengthy episode. I apologize. If you can get through it, terrific. Otherwise, the next episode hopefully will be out on typically Tuesdays and Fridays. City of Liverpool versus Farnborough, our Evo Stick Premier League South Promotion Playoff semifinal. That will be then. But for now, let's get into this. Four 4-2s. Very standard, nothing really big about them. The biggest thing for me is I want players to play in their natural roles as best as possible. So fullbacks are usually either fullback defend or defensive fullback defend. I like the defend part of that. In the 4-4-3s, I do believe there's supports or automatic, just I guess depending on who their sides. I haven't really played a lot with the 4-4-3s much. But the others, the center backs, I always want them on defend. And they're usually a center back or a defensive center back defend. Obviously, let's see, Kilburn, central defender, he's better at cover. But when you start, for me in a lower league, when I start playing stopper versus cover versus defend, you have the stopper up ahead, the cover behind, and a defender, defend right in the middle. That's the way my mind sees it. And if your back four or if your back two are off, and even if it's just a little, that basically opens up a spot for a good striker to just, snake his way through and sneak past the defenders and score a goal easily. So I always like them to be right as close on the line as they can to each other. I don't want one veering too far forward or too far back. Centrally, basically, it is as best as their position as possible. Obviously, Bell is not suited there. Where's Hancock's? I know he's injured. Dude, where are you? Hancock's right there. So, obviously, this is how I would probably play it normally. Ali has been fantastic this season, and he's best suited to be a winger. If I've got him up here, I would probably, in this case, I might do, again, lower league saves. Probably going to do whatever he's most comfortable with. If I'm doing a Liverpool save or, something like that, I would most want an inside forward. I just like the inside forwards and how they cross over. So, but since obviously we're not there, let's bring him back to a winger. In terms of center midfield is standard. Let's just stick with the standard center midfield unless the player's better position is at I would love to have a ball-winning midfielder and a box-to-box midfielder right there next to each other. Luckily, Allen's best is the ball-winning midfielder in support, so that's where he is. Otherwise, I think some of my other midfielders, Sam Hare is probably more a central midfielder on support, and that is it. I like support over automatic. I don't know why. It's just the way I do it. Up front is where it kind of changes for me. In terms of this 4-4-2, what I found pretty quickly, especially when you have Malarkey involved, a defensive forward alongside of a poacher has been terrific. I mean, Noon has been fantastic. Bell has been fantastic. Scarth has been pretty darn good. And it's when you've got a working combination, you stick with it. So the problem I'm having right now is Malarkey he's fantastic. 707 average rating in 43 plus 1 appearances, 17 goals, 6 assists. He has been very good, obviously. But I think he's decreasing a little. And finding a defensive forward is pretty hard in the lower leagues. In scouting, I've had a lot of problems trying to find defensive forwards. So tactically, that's pretty much it. I always start with standard flexible as my default. If we're playing a team that is going to be harder to beat, I will move that to a counter. And usually with a counter, I think my assistant manager likes to have more structured. I tend to go with a lot of times what my assistant manager says. I know he's probably not the greatest assistant manager, especially when you move up the leagues, he'll get worse and worse. But I tend to listen to him because that's what he's paid for. So I start standard flexible. Now let's get into the team instructions. Jeez. Tempo, I don't really play with a lot. Sometimes I think the 4-4-3 is on a higher tempo, but typically in a 4-4-2, I don't really touch it. Time wasting is all dependent on other things. Width-wise, I tend to go fairly wide. I don't know why it defaults back to balanced. It's something in the game, I don't know. Defensive line, I don't touch. Typically, I don't touch that. I just leave it as the default, the normal. And I'm kind of a fence sitter on a lot of these different things. I see the benefits of sitting back. I see the benefits of going forward. But I also see the weaknesses of both. And I'd rather just have on the line where you can do a little bit of both and just be happy with it. I don't know. Closing down, for the most part, I keep it at sometimes. In my mind, the way I see it is our conditioning up until the last 30 minutes or so has been 80% to high 70s, which is very good for me, that I would think. If you're ending a match on 75% conditioning, that's fantastic fitness. And sometimes I'll push it higher just because I want other, players of the opposite team, I want them to feel the pressure as much as possible. Of course, closing down on someone means that someone else is open. And then if that passing structure goes very well, you're host. So prevent short goalkeeper distribution. Again, that pressure, I want to keep, my strikers keeping that pressure on the goalkeeper of the other team. It's so they boot it to the side, boot it forward. That is just a complete bad pass. It never works. I don't know if it's the database or what. It never works. It drives me crazy. It's for some reason that our players are supposed to be preventing short goalkeeper distribution. I mean, look at this. Instructs forwards to press the opposition defense to try and prevent the goalkeeper building from the back. They kind of sit back for the most part, and it's annoying. Same with play out defense. Play out defense, you're supposed to play out from, the goalkeeper to a defender, to a midfielder, to a striker, to a goal. However, our goalkeepers just boot it up no matter what. I don't understand. The only time I change this is if the right or the left is doing a hell of a lot better than the other side. And I might just say, exploit the left, go up that side. Don't worry about the right. Don't worry about the middle. I don't think I've ever done exploit the middle, maybe once. But passing directness. I switch between shorter passing and more direct passing. And this is usually just the way default for me is more direct passing. I don't really do mixed all that often. But during the match, you'll see it all depends on what my assistant manager says, and he'll go back and forth sometimes. But default for me is just more direct passing. If I also see that passing is just horrific during the match, I'll throw it to shorter passing. Just because it's harder to screw up a shorter pass than a more direct pass that's a little longer range. Nothing with creative freedom. Attack-wise, I'll throw work ball into the box every now and again, especially if my assistant manager says so from time to time. If I'm noticing that shots from long distance are a lot more effective than work the ball in the box, I'd rather get more shots on target. And from what I can have been able to tell, in previous FMs, work the ball in the box you'll get more shots on target. You'll get fewer shots, however. So sometimes I'll throw work the ball in the box. It all depends on how the game's going, how my assistant manager sees what's going on and all that. Crosses, I don't really screw with. I keep it on mixed. I've tried all these and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So mixed it is for me. Beyond that, so that's the tactics. Our 4-4-2 has been decreasing in effectiveness lately, which is why I've gone to the 4-4-3. A lot more instructions in the 4-4-3. I did get this from someone else. It hasn't worked all that well lately as well. So I game here and there. You get more shots, more on target. You get a much more attacking mindset. Obviously, it's attacking mentality. However, I'm conceding left and right. So if I score 5, I'll let in 4. And it's just annoying. So I've been sticking with the 4-4-2 as best as possible. Next season, we will see, no matter where we are, if I stick with the 4-4-2 or I'll probably get rid of the 4-4-3 or not use it all that often. Try and maybe get a 4-2-3-1 or something like that. Who knows? Oh, one other thing tactically, and this doesn't work in the 4-4-3, but the 4-4-2, I always like, and I've said this before, a DRDL and an MRML on the bench or playing as best as possible. Ali and Hancock's are suited for one side. That's why I brought Hassan in, wherever he may be. So Hassan has been playing, he can play on the right and the left, or the right and the left. There we go. Cooper can play on the right and the left. So can Jenkinson. That's why these players are there. I mean, they're good, but that is why I brought them in. I don't like having a DL and a DR and a DC on the bench. I don't want 3 players to take up bench spots when 2 will do. So that's kind of, it's for me, it's more, I guess, just the best way, since I always have issues with my subs. You have a defensive center, you have a defensive right-left, and then you have a mid-center, midfield right-left, and then you have a striker and an AM striker combo, whatever. That's kind of how I like it. Obviously, if I have a Hassan in there, I can bring in, I think, is Ali most likely to go off first, or is Hassan likely to go off first, and then bring in an MR or an ML that's just that one position onto the bench, and then I should be okay. That's how I feel it. So now with the tactics over, let's look at the transfers and who I've been looking at to bring in. Basically, the way I saw it from the very beginning is I noticed when we first started the save that I had, I believe it was 3 players who were not grayed out. Grayed out players are average players that the game just makes up. They were players actually in the database, and several teams had these players. So my first priority, and I think I mentioned in the very first episode or very first 2 episodes or so, I was looking for those players. I wanted to see who the Carl Noons, the Joe Camozis, the Densons of the group were, and I wanted to bring them in. Zach Alley, first and foremost, was my very first signing, and he is case in point right there. I saw the picture. I was like, okay, let's take a look at this guy. And for 2 leagues down from where we are now, I was very happy with his numbers. So I brought him in, have been ecstatic since. So that was my first priority. Beyond that, especially now that we're kind of climbing in ranks, let's look at Kieran Price, just as random. The 10 and above is what I'm looking for now. I will say, and I have from the start, and I apologize for this, I look at current ability and potential ability. I just can't stop. If I see a 4 to 5 star in either, I'm going to look at you a little closer. If I see a 2 star, maybe not. I might pass on you. So if I look at the scouting, I just kind of went through this, so that doesn't. But 69, you'll see that my scout actually recommends him. He is 2-star current ability, possibly 4.5 star potential ability. That is what I look for at the very beginning. I'll then look into the scouting recommendations, see what their pros and cons are. Obviously positioning is first and foremost. So, but then I'll look at, let's go back to the overview. Numbers wise, this dude, I don't know. And I think, again, this is where the FM versus the lower league save might have some issues, because you'll see a lot of, the numbers are not great for a 22-year-old. I mean, yeah, he can climb. Finishing of 10 is good. Acceleration of 10 is good. Pace of 10 is fine. But natural fitness of 6, balance, strength of 3, not the greatest in my mind. What you'll see in a player throughout the lower leagues, at least in FM, is you'll see a lot of disparity between a couple of 10s and a lot of 4s, or a lot of 8s and 7s and a couple of 9s and 10s and a couple of 5s and 6s. So you see them kind of, everything's bundled closely in that little midfield area, or, at the top and bottom. And it kind of depends on what I'm looking for. That's kind of how I look mentally at, who I want to bring in. It's kind of a pot shot for me. A lot of it depends on how do I feel about a player. I brought in Kilburn because he looked fantastic when I saw him. But look at some of these numbers. I mean, some of these numbers, I don't care if he doesn't take corners. I don't care if he doesn't do crossing very well. But dribbling of 1 is what I really should have saw. That's kind of a bad thing. But some of these numbers, 10s, 12s, 9s, 8s, not too bad. And this is where he was one where I definitely looked at the current ability and potential ability, because he was, I think, 4 stars, if not 4.5 to 5. And in my mind, yes, he's got a 6.89 average rating in 25 plus 6 appearances, but I don't think he's worked out all that well for me. As my mental state right now, he doesn't seem to fit the bill. So if I was looking at him now compared to when I actually did pick him up, yeah, he probably wouldn't get on the team. But, he did, He's okay, not great. Beyond that, player-wise, I'm not really looking for much. Positioning, obviously, is first and foremost. Am I looking for a midfielder? Am I looking for a defensive player? Am I looking for a goalkeeper? All of that. Next comes, I look at the current ability and the potential ability star-wise. And if it's, very low, I'm going to just say no thank you. I look at the scouts ratings. I look at the numbers for the players. Obviously, with all of that, as you've seen, I tend to forget little things, like the fact Nicky Lee Bulmer, funny enough, can't play because he's played on two different teams this season already. So he's not even been sitting on the bench. He's just been at home doing nothing, gaining 20 pounds a week as a backup, unfortunately. But so little things like that tend to slip my mind pretty much on a lot of these players that I'm scouting. It's just the way things happen. And what can you do? But that's how I know I am not a go A to B to C to D E when it comes to trying to explain what I'm trying to explain. In this case, the transfers and all that. My brain is jumbled. I am not good at explaining things. And that's kind of, both the pros and cons of my transfers is I will see a lot of good things. I will see, Sam Larkey and Bell and Tyler Bell. I'll see them and think, oh, terrific. Star-wise, they're great. Let's go ahead and get them. And then, they're fantastic. But then there's Kilburn and, Nicky Lee Bulmer and a couple of others that I've screwed the pooch on. So it's kind of hit or miss, whatever. So why do I think we're doing so well? Honestly, there are a couple of different factors. First off, I think it's dumb freaking luck. It's in my brain. I am not a Dr. Benji. I'm not a I'm not a Lulujo. I am not a Loki Doki. I am just a guy who does this, who plays a couple of games every now and again when he gets a chance. I know probably more than a newbie would, just starting out in this game, but I definitely do not know nearly as much as most of the other people on YouTube playing this match. And it goes down to me just kind of winging it, like I said, going in what my brain is offering up and saying, yeah, I feel comfortable with that. Or, yeah, I don't know. This transfer might not make it. So push him off to the side and let's find another one. So winging it is kind of the biggest thing for me. And it's all dumb luck. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Second is, I think it really is luck of the draw. If you have a couple wins scattered or put together in a row or scattered around in a small area on the schedule, or your players their morale is going to skyrocket. If you have a lot of losses in a row, your players' morale is going to just tank. And if that happens, you're going to have a lot tougher time trying to build out of that hole and get your players to be, morale boosted again so you can start winning left and right. Beyond dumb luck, beyond luck of the draw, number 3, I would say, is your pickups. My transfers have been fairly good. Players like Tyler Scarth have been doing well. James Boyd's doing well. Carl Noon has always been there and has been doing fantastically. Sam Malarkey, Thielis and Price, and biggest of all, Zach Alley. You can't get bigger in this team than him. And I mean, even those star ratings, it astounds me. But if you've got good pickups, and I've had some bad pickups. Kilburn, I don't think has been a good pickup. Then you have bad pickups like Bulmer who aren't even going to play, and I don't know why he would come here. But you have bad pickups that just don't do much. And Hassan hasn't really been the greatest. So you have the good with the bad, but if you've got a lot of good ones, they can really boost your team. And I think it has worked very well. Number, 4, injuries. If you don't have a lot of injuries to your key players, obviously you're going to have a better team week in, week out. Maybe that's because I've worked on their fitness and things like that in preseason. I don't know. And during the season some, but all in all, injury-wise, if you have a Scarth that's out for a couple months, okay, I'll give you that. But we have Bell and Noon that can replace them. If you have Scarth and Bell out, you have Noon that can still replace them. I think one time we had all 3 out, and I had Cal Boldman, my son, come in. I don't think we did very well. But, if you have some large-term injuries, long-term injuries, or even some small, injuries to just a handful of players, I think you should be fine as long as you've got faith in the players you have. I mean, look at this morale is excellent. Everyone loves it. But lastly, number 5, I believe, is the fact that this is a custom database. And FM does not work well with low league databases. And I think that is a problem between FM and the database. It's not the database maker, it's not FM. It's just that they don't mix well together. FM, the database itself from, say level 12, 11, 10, whatever you want to call it, all the numbers, obviously you want better numbers in the higher leagues. However, there's not a lot of differences. I mean, Zach Alley has been doing fantastic, and his numbers haven't varied all that much from when we first picked him up, I don't believe. But, you are going to get some numbers that go down or increase either way. But at the same time, it's just a matter of, a 12 can probably play an 11 or 10, depending on where the numbers are, obviously, and who they're up against. But overall, it's not like you're going from, Vanarama National to the championship. You're going from, high school 1 to high school 2 to high school 3. You're kind of just moving around in the same sort of sets of potential and abilities and all that and numbers. I don't think the growth level from 12 to 11 to 10 and things like that are all that much compared to the Vanarama National, moving your way up to the championship and the Premier League and all that. I think because FM starts at the Vanarama National, and when you, if I'm not mistaken, and if you get to the Vanarama National, I'm expecting actually if we get promoted now, I think we're going to have a much tougher fight. Because you are starting to look at a lot of more players who are on yearly contracts, who are valued a lot higher than what we've been doing. You'll see our top value is 2.3 thousand in James Boyd. If I go to FC United, you'll see their top value, 21,000 right there in Guy Burton. He's been playing on loan from Bury in the Skybet League One. So you'll get these better numbers, these greater values, and I think that's when it's going to start kicking off. Lower leagues, 12, 11, levels 12 and 11, you'll see everyone's rated 0. There's no rating whatsoever. And that, will continue all the way down. So, but I think those are my kind of keys of why we've been doing well. Again, if we get promoted in the next episode or the next couple of episodes, we'll see what kind of fight we have. Who knows what will happen if we do get promoted to the Vanarama National. My assumption is that we're going to have a much harder time simply because FM's like, oh, I know what to do with this. Whereas lower leagues are like, you've got a bunch of free players. What am I supposed to do with that? So you notice every time, I let go of a player or he comes in, especially when I let go of a player and they don't want to play here anymore. They want to actually get game time. I kick them to the curb and FM sends me an email saying, this player has left for £0. He wasn't on a contract, you dumbass. So, but whatever. So that is my story. I apologize this is so long. If you've gotten anything of this, then I'm absolutely amazed. I am so scatterbrained when I try and explain these things. Again, that's why go to Dr. Benji, go to Lelujo, Loki Doki. They are the professionals. They actually know what they're doing. They do it day in and day out. And it's amazing what knowledge they've uncovered. So I know a couple things, but a lot of it is just winging it. And that's sad to say, especially from a YouTube creator. But that is how my mind works. I'm so scatterbrained that it's, hit or miss. So anyway, I'm going to shut up now. Next episode will be City of Liverpool versus Farnborough. I apologize it's taken so long. I'm out. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and enjoy. Or we may, who knows?